Most of us were friends. Rarely did we have someone we didn't know who just came out of the blue and ran for the office. We were all of us engaged in business, either owners or managers of businesses. We saw our job more as the economy and providing opportunity in the community than anything else.
When I became mayor in 1974, I was the last of the JC presidents. The JCs up to that point had a strong history of running the city of Newport. They'd taken over City Hall in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, changed Newport's government, hired Don Davis as their first city manager, and went to home rule.
Well, it's like herding cats. They all run in different directions, and you got to get them all going the same way. In the city manager's job, I saw it as my job was to assist these people in getting what they wanted to have happen in their town.
My grandparents bought a large tract of land for back taxes. They bought them at the courthouse steps. They lived in Salem at the time, and they liked Newport, so they came over and bought all the hillside where the Elks are and the Embarcadero is and all that for $3,000. I first I got involved with city when I got this notice. This said after my grandparents had died. I was kind of looking after it when I was driving back and forth between Oregon State and Newport, and it said, you're going to be assessed $3,000 or $4,000 for the new sewer line that's going in. And I thought, well, what the heck is this all about? So I go down to City Hall and I say, well, I don't want to talk about this. I don't have the money to pay this kind of assessment. And they said, well, you got to talk to Don Davis. That's the first time I met Don. What is all this about? He says, well, we're going to run a sewer line up the bayfront so that these people don't keep dumping their sewage in the bay. I said, well, I can't afford to pay for this. He said, well, you can do it for 10 years. And I said, well, how do you calculate this number? This is too much. Well, we do it by lineal feet and by square feet. We have this formula. And he goes through and he explains all this. I said, well, it sounds fair, but I don't like it. He says, well, that's the law.
You have to be willing to bend and work with the people that are putting their money or betting their money on something working.
I ended up having a grudging respect for Don, even though he was able to bill me one of the things I didn't have anything to say about. And I found out about city business, and I should get closer to the city here if I'm going to build a Embarcadero.
What I was, the young guard was not afraid of me because I represented what they wanted to see. And the old guard knew me, and they knew that I wasn't going to come in and just turn everything over upside down.
He was very cooperative, and in a lot of ways, we can do this, we can do that to help you out. And it made a big difference in the economics of making that work.
I noticed that we didn't really have the money to accomplish what I knew that we needed to do. So I was standing talking to the city manager of Albany one day at a city manager's meeting. He says, hey Davis, I found the keys to the vault. And I said, oh, tell me about this. He says, it's called urban renewal.
Urban renewal, what it did is it took taxes and let the city do it with special things. And Don was smart enough to say, well, if we're going to use it, let's do things that are going to save the rest of the taxpayers money. It just gives us a little more control. So things like fire buildings, sewer and water separation, swimming pool that need to be refixed, and then later performing arts center, and some of those things that could be done with that funding. It saved people from having to raise taxes for that because they had their renewal project. So
some of it was infrastructure, some of it was attractions, but those were things that just were kind of natural for us to work on because they benefited the community at large.
With urban renewal, and then we doubled the size of the library, and I think we have a great library now. And we did the same thing, see, with the hospital. And the port was the same thing. When we went to the port and asked, what did you like? Well, we need Port and Docks 5 and 7 built. Oh. So we went back and we made an urban renewal plan out of that. That's where most of your fishing vessels are tied up today.
Urban renewal has really been one of the driving forces, Clyde and I think, that made Newport really what it has been.
A lot of city business used to be done after the city council. We go someplace and have a few beers.
Yeah, or Moby Dick's.
Or often we would have lunch before the city council. City councils were on every other Monday. We'd have lunch ahead of time, and Donna said, well, you got this issue coming up, and you got this issue coming up, and we got to get prepared for it. Well, how are we going to deal with this? And then I said, well, you can't do this anymore. It's illegal, because there's more than a majority of the council here.
Some of the open meetings laws information that gets bandied about. We had no concern about 3 or 4 of us sitting down together and talking about issues and maybe not making a decision, but at least we knew what each of us thought, and it was easier to have a discussion in a public forum if you know what the rest of the folks there are thinking about.
Well, there's a lot of good brainstorming ideas that came through because nobody would be afraid whatever they said would end up in the news someplace or in the newspaper. We did a lot of activity in the back of Moby Dick's and the back of the Anchor restaurant.
Whether we agreed or not wasn't always the case. We certainly had some very spirited arguments amongst ourselves, but they were arguments that were issue-oriented. We were still friends when we left the meeting. We still would have dinner with the families. We didn't take those things personally the way it seems it happens so much today.
And that helps a lot in a town where you know and trust one another, because that's essentially what you need to do in any group. Is if you don't know one another and you can't trust one another, nothing ever gets done. All you have to do is look at TV News Today to see that.
We couldn't convince everybody, I guess, in the county that we knew what we were doing, and they had to challenge every once in a while, but generally it went our way.
I was in charge of the planning commission, in charge of urban renewal. I was in charge of the recreation of what we had. It wasn't much. So I didn't have to confer. I had no meetings in my office with my department heads. I just changed hats, and decided, well, let's do this. But so it was, and there was nobody at the federal or state level give a hoot what I did. And the council said, that sounds good, David, go ahead and do it. So it was one of those easy days. If I could find the money, all I had to promise the city was that I would hire no new city employees.
It would not be a burden on the community. That's the other issue I think we always concerned ourselves with. Most of the things we built were all volunteer run or run by another organization. At one time, even our recreation department programs, YMCA ran them. We agreed to take care of the buildings, and YMCA ran them for the proceeds of whatever they got in the way of revenue.
The swimming pool, we passed 2 issues. We had a serial levy to hire the one person who was going to run it for us, as well as pay off the bonds. And when we had the library, there was 1 librarian over there, and the rest of us, Mrs. Howes, who volunteered. The senior center was the same thing, and the council said, well, if you can get a grant to build a kitchen so you don't have to eat that slop they send over from Corvallis for Tuesday lunches, we'd match the money and build it for them. So by golly, they got their grant, so we had to come up with the other money, and we built the senior center down there. John Kennedy got assassinated. President Johnson came in, and he had an accelerated public works program that they instituted in his administration. So we had to diversify, and we could see that without lumber and logging and our fishing industry, it was cyclical. And the tourism, we were trying to do battle with Seaside and Lincoln City and the 20 Miracle Miles and everybody that way. And so when you could get something like government, which is a guaranteed payroll around the clock all 12 months of the year, you go after it with everything you can. And Wayne Burt was sitting in the meeting, I understand that, and he saw that he was just a brand new head of the oceanography department at Oregon State, which is a brand new department over there. And he wanted an ocean research vessel real bad. So I always laugh, and I think he must have worked for J.C. Penney because he asked for $1,961,000. Now, today somebody would always ask for $2 million. But anyway, he got every dollar he asked for, but he didn't know where he was going to park the boat. Here's where Tom Becker hopped in. He hopped in and got the port and other groups of people to come in and support, and they had a dock ready for it by the time he got his boat here.
You notice what makes a difference in these communities? It's not their resources, it's not their location, it's the people. Some of these people have a core people that are excited about where they live and what to do, and they're working hard. And you've got other cities that they fight with each other and nothing happens. And I thought that's the difference between Newport and say Coos Bay, or Newport and Lincoln City, or other places.
Newport has been a very great town for producing people that love the town they live in.
Things have always changed and evolved, but I just think Newport has had a step up on a lot of places because of the people that live here.
Some of what we did was very good planning. Some of it was really dumb luck. And I never know how many spoonfuls of each go into the mix.
Yeah, that's how you get it done.